Greetings to all C3RF members and friends across Canada and indeed around the world, and a special welcome to the folks at Veterans for Freedom on their dedicated streaming channels as they view this video summary of the C3RF update for 29 November 2024. The title of this update is The Road to Hell, and it kicks off by noting that this non-biblical proverb, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, has been with us for some time now. It was first put into print by Saint Bernard of Clairvaux in 1150 AD, but seems to be alive and well in today's post-national Canada. After all, it's hard to find a policy, national, provincial, or municipal, that hasn't gone down in flames and shame after a lofty and virtuous introduction. At the top of the list is the trope, diversity is our strength. This transmogrified into policies across the board that are hurting Canadians to this day. And so we have unsustainable numbers of migrants from any number of countries that harbor serious hatreds for the concepts that underpin a Western liberal democracy. These ideals, of course, include individual rights and freedoms that are endemic to such systems of governance as ours. Yet another good intention that fell by the wayside at the provincial level was the need to gird up our medical systems by flattening the curve. It was all about setting aside our civil liberties for a few weeks until more was known about the Wuhan virus terror at hand. These weeks, however, grew into months and then even years, though it was known early on that we were dealing with a pandemic of the aged and institutionalized. Regardless, minimal and understandable sacrifices of our charter-guaranteed civil liberties gave way to indeterminate lockdowns and silver bullet one-size-fits-all vaccines. To make matters worse, these draconian measures seem to be quite arbitrary in nature, with citizens being forbidden from worshiping in their churches and the young being arrested for daring to play shinny hockey on the local pond. This, even as liquor stores were allowed to stay open. Those who chafe at such hypocrisies were labeled as yahoos by provincial leaders, while those who had second thoughts about coerced vaccination programs were not just reactionary, they were misogynists. At the municipal end of the political spectrums, we had an excellent example of good intentions gone awry in the nation's capital, Ottawa. It was with great fanfare that the city joined the ranks of other compassionate metropolises to save the world from climate change through the procurement of a multi-billion-dollar light rail system. The Ottawa initiative was more than a bit of a surprise, as the city, up to that point, was recognized as having a world-leading public transport system that influenced the design and development of others as far away as Brisbane, Australia. Central to this reputation was its innovative transit busway system that moved buses away from vehicular traffic and onto roads dedicated to public transit use. That is all gone now, as the new LRT system struggles to keep from derailing, let alone providing reliable service. Seemingly, Ottawa's LRT was such a good intention that deliberate malfeasance was a small price to pay for rushing it into service. Canada's headlong rush into the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion is nothing less than a reckless and toxic journey into the hell of identity politics. What else to say when diversity of opinion excludes your wrong think? Equity necessarily means dumping meritocracy, and inclusion means recognizing all manner of behaviors as normal when they are seen by the majority as objectionable. And so it is that the DEI ideology becomes a source of division when one identity group sets itself against another, and rewards and favors are rationed out to those deemed more deserving by a centralized authority. In the end, the centralized authority gains while the poor individual is forced to hand over control of his life and dreams to that same regime. Hellbound indeed. The hell associated with losing control over one's own life and prospects was demonstrated in spades over the course of the flatten the curve gambit. If anything, it was a confirmation of the adage, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The state was given an inch under the premise of restricting civil liberties for a few weeks, and it took a mile when, some 2 years later, it had Western societies locked down and jabbed up. It was hell in our time with no end in sight until the Freedom Convoy took to the road and parked itself in the middle of Canada's capital. Only then, and after the declaration of the Emergencies Act, and the freezing of the financial accounts of single mothers who had dared make donations of as little as $50 to the convoy, did governments relent and begin to lift the draconian Wuhan virus pandemic restrictions. Between the declaration of martial law and a federal court decision that deemed such invocations to be unconstitutional, Canada and everyday citizens had gone to hell and back. Canada may have pulled back from the brink of hell, no thanks to its ruling Liberal NDP junta, but it remains on the road nonetheless. The downward path can be recommenced at any time as the excesses associated with DEI ideologies and our new pandemic protocols remain in place and unexamined as to their deleterious effects. Just how did these ideologies take hold, and who is directing their implementation against the good folk of Canada? Lacking answers to these questions, citizens remain defenseless against even more reckless migration plans that are tearing their communities apart, as is happening now in Ottawa, where sprung shelters for newcomers are being raised in the midst of family-laden neighborhoods. In a similar fashion, Canadians remain defenseless on the public health front as the WHO's international health regulations, signed on to by Canada, stand to foist the same unsuccessful and draconian protocols on them that gave us flattening the curve and zero COVID in the first place. Endemic to the international health regulations that await WHO implementation are the same mandatory vaccine protocols that caused so much damage during the Wuhan virus pandemic. Such demonstrated damage has been chronicled by authoritative sources on multiple occasions, only to be unceremoniously ignored. Nevertheless, 330 active and retired Canadian military who believe the Charter protected their right to refuse such medications, for whatever reason, had those beliefs smashed in a recent court case. The judge ruled that these complainants failed to, quote, plead material facts, unquote, in support of their allegations. So there it is in Canada at this point in time. Charter rights are not there to protect the citizen from government overreach. They are only there if you can prove you deserve them. When the last living First Minister responsible for drafting and patriating the Charter was advised of this case, he stated flatly that, quote, the chances of restoring our democracy are very slim, unquote. Canadians can be forgiven for wondering just what has gone so wrong in their country that their civil liberties, once guaranteed by the Charter, are so flagrantly disrespected by a judiciary charged with preserving them. Paving the road to hell with good intentions is one thing, but this seems to be a matter of the paver giving up any pretense of transporting the world, or Canada in this case, to a better place. This does not seem to be a case of quislings blindly following ideologies spun from DEI or Agenda 2030 cloth. This would appear to be a visceral reaction to anything that would jeopardize the progression of a revolutionary, even anti-human undertaking by highly placed and powerful protagonists. So said Vlad Tepes of Vlad Tepes blog on a August 2024 edition of the Laura Lynn Thompson Tyler Show. In no uncertain terms, he hammered home his contention that nothing will be allowed to stand against the state in a new post-national Canada, just as it is in any other communist or fascist state. Tepes made this well-reasoned observation based on the chaotic disciplinary proceedings against Ottawa Police Service Detective Helen Gruss. His eyewitness accounts of these deliberations revealed an abject refusal by authorities to seek the truth surrounding the untimely and sudden deaths of 9 newborn babies in Ottawa. Rather than this, they are about protecting the authority of the state. Indeed, it would seem in present-day Canada that, if anything, it is illegal to try to counter the mass lines of attack against the individual by the state. Lines of attack like a man is a woman, and that the conversion of children away from born biologics is a good thing. Andrew M. Lobochewski, in his 1984 magnum opus Political Ponerology, posits that such attacks are not anchored in any particular ideology, but are engineered by political psychopaths who use convenient belief systems to achieve absolute power. The end result is a psychocracy where evil is perpetrated on innocent others to dehumanize or destroy them. This being the case, we are not traveling down a road paved with good intentions, but one being paved by those who harbor evil intent. In closing, a reminder to join us at CanadianCitizens.org, where you can see this update in its full glory, including links to all of the cited documents. Simply go to the News tab at the top of the page and select C3RF Member Updates from its drop-down menu. Until next time, this is Russ Cooper signing off, wishing you and yours much happiness and freedom from C3RF.